Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Ellison Barber, in for Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, Spartan Strong. This morning, a community and the country coming together in the wake of that mass shooting at Michigan State University as we learn more about the 3 students who were killed.
She was the best we have. She is going to be dearly missed. A piece of our community is gone.
How the victims are being remembered this morning. Plus, new information about the gunman and the weapon used in the attack. A new challenger this morning. Signs of change in Washington as former Tea Party favorite turned governor Nikki Haley enters the Republican race for president against Donald Trump. And on Capitol Hill, longtime Senator Dianne Feinstein announces she's not running for re-election, marking the end of an era for Democrats. More on the jockeying already underway to replace her and what it all means for 2024. Plant power. Researchers giving us another reason to eat your greens. What a new study shows about the effects a plant-based diet could have on your health. And fashion forward. Pharrell sang it himself. It's not where he's been, but where he's about to go. This morning, music producer Pharrell Williams filling some big shoes as Louis Vuitton's new creative director for menswear, succeeding the late fashion icon Virgil Abloh. More on Pharrell's path to music, from music to art to fashion, and what it might mean for the future of the French luxury brand.
Kind of an interesting development there to see someone in the music world moving into the fashion world. Those worlds all just coming together.
It's good to be with you on a very busy news day.
Yes.
We begin this morning with the latest developments in the investigation into the Michigan State shooting.
The school is still reeling, and investigators are still searching for a motive after a gunman went on a deadly rampage on campus Monday night. He opened fire at a residence hall and the student union. 3 students were killed in the violence. 5 others were injured.
I do feel like it's going to be hard to recognize campus the same anymore. It's going to be hard to get used to it again. It's going to be hard to look at my dorm the same, to look at the buildings that I travel to every single day.
Police identified the students who were killed as Brian Frazier and Ariel Anderson, both sophomores, and Alexandria Verner, a junior. This morning, investigators are beginning to piece together evidence. They're also releasing new details about the suspected shooter, 43-year-old Anthony Dwayne McRae. They say he died off campus from a self-inflicted gunshot wound and that he had no ties to the school. The Michigan State community continues to mourn those who were killed, with vigils taking place across the state to honor the victims. The university is also planning to hold its own vigil tonight. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has the latest from East Lansing.
This morning, another U.S. college town grieving after the nation's latest mass shooting. Michigan State University announcing sophomore Brian Frazier, junior Ariel Anderson, and junior Alexandria Verner were all killed when a gunman opened fire on campus Monday night.
We would like to honor her.
Verner honored late Tuesday at a vigil in her hometown, Clawson, Michigan. Her former high school principal describing her as an exemplary young person.
You try to surround yourself with people that make you feel good as a human being. And that's what Al did to everyone.
In a statement, Anderson's family saying in part the aspiring surgeon was passionate about helping her friends and family, assisting children, and serving people. Frazier was president of MSU's Phi Delta Theta chapter, the fraternity calling him a great friend to his Phi Delta brothers.
I think all of us are numb to the whole situation. We have lived this our entire lives.
5 other students remain hospitalized. This fraternity surveillance video shared with NBC News appears to show the suspected shooter, Anthony Dwayne McRae, in the massacre's aftermath. McRae's father telling NBC News his son became reclusive, evil, and mean after his mother died 2 years ago. But still, no official motive. More than 600 miles away, police in Ewing, New Jersey say after McRae shot and killed himself, authorities found a note in his pocket that indicated a threat to that community, prompting schools there to shut down Tuesday, although no threat was found. Back at Michigan State, the latest gun violence to stun the country, prompting some parents to come pick up their children from school.
The minute we saw her, the tears started and we just hugged and held each other. Because there are kids and parents that can't do that today because of this senseless stuff that goes on.
That was Jesse Kirsch reporting from Michigan State this morning. Now to a potential breakthrough in the Atlantic and the search for debris from that suspected Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah, crews have recovered what military officials called significant debris, including sensors and electronics, as well as large sections of the structure. But this morning, there are still questions about the takedowns of the 3 smaller objects this past weekend. The White House said yesterday those unidentified objects, which it told Congress are most likely balloons, could be for benign commercial or academic research. But the price to shoot them down was not cheap. An Air Force spokesperson says the missiles alone used to shoot down the objects cost at least $2.5 million, and that doesn't even include the cost of scrambling the fighter jets. For more, we're joined by NBC News White House correspondent Mike Mimily and NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill. Good morning to both of you. Mike, let's start with you. The National Weather Service confirmed that none of the objects shot down belong to that agency. And so far, searchers have not been able to find the debris from the 3 objects that were shot down this weekend to try to identify what exactly those were. A lot to unpack. What is the White House saying? What do we know this morning?
Well, Ellison, obviously an important breakthrough, as you mentioned, with the recovery of important component parts from that Chinese balloon off the coast of South Carolina. Officials hope to really learn more about the nature of the Chinese surveillance program based on what they're able to now inspect. But a very different story with those 3 other objects shot down on Sunday. John Kirby from the National Security Council saying that the leading assessment is that these were much smaller than the Chinese balloon. They were flying at a lower altitude and that they may have been, as you mentioned, for benign or commercial purposes. But that's about all that we know. Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, noting yesterday it could be a significant amount of time before officials can recover those objects. One in treacherous weather off the coast of Alaska, the other in the Canadian Rockies, very difficult to reach, and the third is hundreds of feet underwater in Lake Huron. So it could be days, likely weeks, if they're able to recover them at all.
So, Julie, lawmakers both sides of the aisle have been critical of the White House's response to some of these incidents. What do lawmakers think President Biden and the administration should be doing?
Well, plainly, they think that he should be talking to the American people. We heard that all weekend from Republicans and Democrats after this 3rd object was downed. And we heard that all day yesterday when they received a briefing. And then we're going to hear that for the rest of the week from both sides of the aisle. You know, Democrats pushing back a little bit, saying that it's up to Biden to make that decision. Republicans, however, even emerging out of that classified briefing yesterday, saying that this is something they want Biden to do. They want the American people to have answers to the questions they have. The only problem is, and as we learned after that briefing yesterday, it seems like the administration doesn't have all the answers yet. And that's maybe part of the calculation for why they're holding off on speaking to the American public. But look, lawmakers also just want to know if we're prepared to handle this in the future. That's something Senator Tester, a Democrat, had asked in that initial briefing last week. That's something we're continuing to carry throughout this week. People want to know if we're prepared to handle this in the future. Obviously, after that first hearing last week, we saw another 3 of these objects. So clearly, this is something that is not going away. And that's certainly on the thoughts and minds of lawmakers as we head into this day.
And Mike, when you hear the White House saying that 3 of the 4 objects might be commercial or benign, it almost sounds like they're not a very big deal. If they're not a big deal or they're commercial or benign, then why is the White House going ahead with setting up a new task force?
Yeah, Ellison, this is really all about getting parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy that don't necessarily communicate well with each other at the same table to try to, at the very least, identify what is the nature and the scope of all the stuff, to use the technical term, is up in the air at the moment, especially civilian aviation authorities, the FAA, which monitor the skies, with military stakeholders who secure the sky. And so we have some new reporting from our White House team, Courtney Kuby as well, which is that the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, hopes to have some initial recommendations based on the feedback from these different agencies tonight, and that based on those recommendations to develop some new protocols for just how the government might treat future encounters with unidentified objects in the future. And it's based on those recommendations, which is significant, that we may first hear from the president publicly about all of this. We obviously haven't heard from him. There's been great criticism from both parties about the lack of clarity coming from the White House. And so what the White House officials are telling us is that there are active discussions about when is the right time for the president to speak about this. They don't necessarily want to put him out there until they can have him with some clear answers about how to deal with these situations in the future.
So, Julie, there was a classified briefing held for senators yesterday. What do we know about that briefing? What are we hearing from lawmakers?
Well, look, we're hearing a lot more questions still than answers, but the good news is lawmakers emerged saying it's not alien, so at least that can be removed from the list. But at the same time, they don't know exactly what these objects are. And this is going to continue into the week. Just today, there's an unrelated hearing in the Commerce Committee with the acting FAA administrator on that system outage that I'm sure a lot of viewers are familiar with that grounded all those flights in the beginning of January. Well, this issue is still expected to come up there. Republicans on the committee, including Senator Marsha Blackburn, is planning to ask the FAA administrator about this, including why Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, was not focused on this, she says. So you could see how Republicans particularly are going to tie this issue in to perhaps every other issue we see that sort of relates to this in any way in the coming weeks and days. And there's another classified briefing for all senators happening later today on China competitiveness with the U.S. in general, on the ground, in the sky, and technology. This is something that was pre-scheduled. We see an increased focus from Congress on China in general when you take away these objects. So obviously all of these aerial objects just increased focus, increased urgency from Congress to put pressure on the administration to make sure they're prepared to act against China in the future. Of course, these last three objects, I should know, we don't know where they came from yet. They could still be for commercial purposes or from another foreign government, but this is clearly something that lawmakers, particularly Republicans, are trying to keep at the forefront.
Lots of questions, but we are crossing aliens off the list, so there's something. All right, Mike Memoli, Julie Zirkin, thank you both.
Right now to new developments this morning in the investigation into former President Donald Trump. The special counsel that's investigating Trump's handling of classified documents is trying to force a lawyer for the former president to testify before a grand jury. A source told NBC News that special counsel Jack Smith has asked a judge to allow prosecutors to invoke the so-called crime fraud exception and compel the attorney's testimony. The move would allow prosecutors to sidestep the attorney-client privilege between Trump and his lawyer, Evan Corcoran. The special counsel has not said what questions they want to ask Trump's attorney, but NBC News has asked him and a Trump spokesperson for comment. Former President Trump has previously called for the search for classified documents a witch hunt.
Out of the race for the White House, Nikki Haley will be in Charleston, South Carolina this morning to kick off her presidential run with a campaign event there. The former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the UN officially announced her 2024 plans with this campaign video put out yesterday on social media. Haley is the first Republican to challenge former President Trump for the nomination. NBC's Ali Vitale joins us now from Charleston with a preview. Ali, good morning to you. So why did she announce her run now? And, I mean, was there any doubt she'd kick off her campaign anywhere other than South Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely no doubt about it, Joe. She is South Carolina through and through, and she mentions that in the video that she put out yesterday, officially announcing, at least digitally, and now, of course, doing it here in person later this morning in the place that she has long called home and mentions in that video. Again, she's a former two-term governor here, and then, of course, went on to the world stage as part of the Trump administration. But for Haley, the thinking and announcing early is also just from a fundraising perspective, trying to make sure that she's got enough money coming in and can be clear and direct about her intentions for 2024 in the presidential to get enough money to actually make it for the long haul of this. I know that for some of us who do presidential politics, there's no such thing as getting into a race too early. But if you look at it on a calendar, she has to go for over a full calendar year if she wants to stretch this campaign into the primary and be able to beat not just Donald Trump, but the array of other people who we expect to also jump into this field. So fundraising and cash flow are going to be huge. That's part and parcel to this strategy as well. But look, she's getting out there today in person in South Carolina, a very important state on the presidential calendar. And then she'll go to some of the other ones that we often keep our eye on, New Hampshire and Iowa in the coming weeks, kicking her campaign off in true presidential fashion, hitting all the places that she's going to need to be spending a lot of time in. And I think by proxy, I will be spending a lot of time there as well, as usual.
A lot of time for a long period of time. You know, I mean, it is not a huge surprise that Haley's running for president, but it is notable that Trump is now officially facing some competition for the nomination. So now that she's in, do we think the floodgates are going to open up? Can we expect others to follow, like, say, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis?
And look, that's a question that not just you are asking, but other reporters were asking yesterday in Florida, for example. I think we have that sound if you want to play it.
Nikki Haley announced her presidential run today. Do you plan on following suit?
Wouldn't you like to know? Anybody else?
Now, to be clear, Joe, as someone who's following that presidential campaign, I would very much like to know if that's going to be a campaign that I'm going to be following. But look, if you look at the names that we often talk about of who could get into this field, yes, it's notable that Trump now officially has at least one challenger, and it's coming from within his own administration. Of course, Haley served with Trump. She's going to have to defend both the positions that she's taken for Trump and backing him, but also the comments that she's made against him over the years. Because I remember being in South Carolina in 2016, and Nikki Haley was not an endorser of Donald Trump. And if you look at the way that she's trying to turn the page now, she's making a sort of generational leadership argument, targeting Trump not on policy or his presidency, but on his age, something that is going to be a factor not just for Trump, but for Biden as well. And then if I think about some of the other names that could end up in this field, you got a lot of either former or present governors, so a lot of executive power likely to be on these debate stages, from New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a lot of other names like that potentially getting in the mix. But at this point, just a one-on-one battle between Haley and Trump, though that field's going to get a lot bigger.
And Allie, very quickly, while I have you, Dianne Feinstein announcing she's going to finally retire. How's that race shaping up there?
Yeah, we've been tracking this race really closely on Capitol Hill in my other day job. And for Feinstein, the open question had been, as other people were announcing their candidacies for California Senate, what her decision was going to be. It almost seemed like people were just assuming she would retire. Ultimately, that's what she announced she was going to do yesterday. What that means is now it is an open race for a seat that does not come open very often. We've already seen two members of the California House delegation, Adam Schiff and Katie Porter, announce their intentions. I'm told that by the end of this month, Congresswoman Barbara Lee is also going to be announcing her run. None of that is surprising. These are names that have been in the mix for a while, but that's going to be a really hot primary contest to watch.
Most definitely. All right, Allie Vitale, lots to cover this morning. Thank you so much. Testimony continues today in the murder trial of former South Carolina attorney Alec Murdock, who is accused of killing his wife and youngest son. Yesterday, the jury heard new details about Murdock's behavior the day after the murders from his sister-in-law, Marion Proctor.
While she was on the stand, she said that she found the comments Alec made after the killing to be strange.
I just thought his priority should have been focusing on finding out who killed Maggie and Paul.
And how do you know that wasn't a priority for him?
We never talked about it. It was just odd. And we were sort of living in fear.
Joining us now to discuss is NBC News correspondent Lindsay Reiser. Lindsay, good morning. Walk us through some of that testimony, what we heard from Maggie Murdock's sister.
Yeah, this is her only sibling, Maggie's only sibling. They were very close. They talked almost every day. And she thought it was strange that Alec's top priority seemed to be clearing Paul's name. Remember that boat crash that had happened prior to the murders. And she thought that was strange because her primary goal was finding out who did this to her sister and to Paul. She also testified about an addiction to pills that Maggie said Alec had, basically saying she would call Paul her little detective, making sure that there weren't pills in the house and that this happened all the way up to the murders. One thing that the jurors did not hear was an alleged affair from some 15 years ago that Marion Proctor said her sister said happened. Didn't think anything was still going on, but it still bothered her sister. The judge actually ruled that the jury would not hear that detail.
So the jury also yesterday heard from Murdock's kennel handler, Dale Davis, in the state of the kennel the morning after the murders. What all did they hear there?
So he testified he was very meticulous. He took care of the dogs, went there twice a day, every day for the last 4 years. And he talked about how meticulously he would put the hose back, how he would clean the kennels in a certain way so that water wouldn't pool in certain areas. And he was shown basically a photo from the night of the the crime scene murders that showed water pooling in an area, is insinuating he couldn't have done that. Again, insinuating that there might have been some sort of cleanup effort, but the prosecution hasn't shown any direct evidence of that. This dog handler would also testify that Alec and Maggie were sort of lovey-dovey, seemed to have a good relationship, and that there was actually a dog who was injured in one of the kennels. Let's listen to that exchange.
One of the hunting dogs got hung up in one of the kennels.
Yes.
Choking to death.
Yes.
And the decision was made to mercy to put the dog down, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mr. Alec couldn't shoot that dog. He asked you to do it, didn't he?
Yes.
And did you do that?
Yes.
So in addition to that testimony, we also heard from a forensic accountant with the South Carolina Attorney General's office. He's been looking into finances. He said that the walls were closing in. He couldn't pay all of his debts. He was burning through cash. And remember, Ellison, you know this very well, that the prosecution is trying to show that Alec killed Maggie and Paul to cover up for financial crimes that were going to come crashing down.
There have been so many witnesses from the prosecution side, but they previously said that they thought they might wrap up this week. Is that still what we expect to happen? When could the defense get this?
We still think it could be sometime this week. We don't know. There's still some outstanding questions here on how much the jury is going to hear about. And stay with me here, because this is saga-esque. This roadside shooting that happened 3 months after Maggie and Paul were killed on a rural South Carolina road, in which Alex says he was shot in the head by cousin Eddie Smith. We're waiting to hear if we're going to, waiting to see if we're going to hear Eddie Smith testify potentially as early as today, sometime this week, about that. Essentially, there's an insurance suicide for hire, a separate allegation, separate investigation into that. So we're waiting to hear. And we're also waiting to see whether Murdock himself is going to testify in his own defense.
Still a lot of outstanding questions in a case that just has layers upon layers and layers. Thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay. We appreciate it.
All right, we got a little bit of everything from snow days by the Great Lakes to spring-like temperatures here on the East Coast. Time for your morning news now forecast.
Michelle Grossman is here with more details. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, guys. Great to see you. Yeah, it's tale of two seasons. We have winter weather in the west. We have those spring-like temperatures in the east. That's going to continue for the next couple of days. And we're also watching the threat for severe weather by this evening and overnight hours. This is what it looks like on radar. You can see lots going on. Where you see the blue, that is the snow falling out west. You see some rain, that's in the green, and also some brighter colors. That's where the heavier rain is falling. So we do have 24 million Americans under a winter weather alert. A blizzard warning continues in portions of the upper Midwest. We have a winter storm warning stretching from the southwest through the central plains into portions of the Midwest as well. And we do have a winter storm watch in some spots. So wind alerts, we had really windy days the past 2 days. We're going to continue that today. 46 million people impacted by winds gusting over 60 miles per hour. That could bring down some trees, some power lines, and cause some power outages. And those wind alerts do stretch into portions of the Great Lakes as well. So this is the setup. We have a duo of storms. We've been watching these two storms all week long. And today we're going to see that intensifying low tracking into the central plains. That's going to bring some snow. Then it's going to encounter that really warm air we were just talking about, and that's going to erupt some severe storms later on this evening into the overnight hours. Again, particularly dangerous when this happens overnight. This is in the Mid-South. So that is today. Then tomorrow this moves off to the east, and we see an expansive area that could see some strong to severe storms stretching from Alabama all the way to Ohio. Also some really heavy rain along that front, and we could see some flash flooding as well. On the backside, where we're still seeing that cold air, heavy snow from the plains into the Great Lakes. By Friday, it slowly moves into the east. We're going to lose the threat for severe weather, but we're going to continue to see heavy rain falling. So starting out your Friday along the East Coast with some rain, even some snow in the northern parts of New England, upstate New York, and then those temperatures are going to come crashing down. So a big difference by this weekend. It's going to be kind of a wake-up call in the east this weekend. But today, we want to put this on your radar. We're looking at a severe threat, 14 million people at risk, especially where you see the orange, especially where you see the yellow. That's where we're expecting tornadoes. Some could be strong, EF2 or greater, winds gusty to 60 miles per hour, and also damaging hail. And then tomorrow, watch how this area just sort of expands and grows from the Gulf Coast to the Ohio Valley, even portions of the Northeast as well. 32 million people at risk for tornadoes, winds gusting once again to 60 miles per hour, causing some damage and also some hail. So Cincinnati, Nashville, Birmingham, and also Jackson, you could see some strong tornadoes. Back to you guys.
All right, so a lot of things to watch this weekend. Michelle, thank you so much. Sure. And coming up on Morning News Now, rescue and recovery. Emergency crews in Syria and Turkey making their final efforts to find survivors of last week's devastating earthquakes.
This is the death toll tops 40,000 and still counting. We'll bring you the latest from one of the areas hardest hit after the break.
We're back with a grim update from Syria and Turkey. The death toll following last week's devastating earthquake has now surpassed 40,000, making it the deadliest event in Turkey's history. The number of people missing is also climbing as rescue personnel frantically work to find any remaining signs of life. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobiea is on the ground in Turkey with the latest. She joins us now for more. Kelly, good morning. We are still seeing and hearing stories of these amazing recovery efforts 1 week after the earthquake struck. What else can you tell us about the latest rescue missions? Many of them have still been successful. How are people surviving so long?
Yeah, Allison, it's just incredible to see these rescue efforts and to hear some of the stories after these people are rescued. Just this morning, a 42-year-old woman was rescued alive from underneath what used to be her home, underneath all of that concrete and twisted metal, and taken to the hospital. There were 9 rescues, at least, that we know of yesterday from the debris. People surviving for, 9 nights, going into 10 days now. In some cases, the rescuers are digging tunnels through these huge mountains of rubble. They're crawling through. In one situation, they saw just a 64-year-old woman's arm waving to them through the debris. She was later rescued. The boys, 2 brothers who were rescued yesterday, were interviewed by local television, and they said that they were eating protein powder. They were basically rationing some protein powder that they found nearby in order to survive. They were under the rubble for 8 days, 9 nights. Allison, just incredible.
That's amazing to see, Kelly. It's also very challenging for people who have survived once they or their family make it out of these situations. How has it been getting aid to people who need it the most from Syria to Turkey?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a lot of people who have been left homeless, some 200,000, more than 200,000 buildings damaged or so badly damaged that they'll have to be demolished or just completely destroyed. So a lot of people are living still in the open air in very cold conditions. The temperature really drops at night. The situation even worse in Syria, where very little aid has gotten through. A lot of people having to fend for themselves. The 2 more aid corridors have been opened into Syria. We understand 1 aid convoy got across the border yesterday. Here in Turkey, a lot of volunteer groups are sort of filling that void until aid can reach them. From what we understand from both rescuers on the ground as well as big aid organizations, there seems to be a bit of a choke point. All of the aid has to go through the Turkish government here in Turkey, and then they decide how to distribute it. So some groups have told us that seems to be slowing down the distribution a bit. Ellison.
All right, Kelly Kobiea, thank you so much for that.
More international headlines now. Russian officials are reporting battlefield advances in eastern Ukraine.
Josh Letterman joins us now from London with that and a whole lot more. Good morning, Josh.
Hey, Allison, that's right. Russia's defense ministry is claiming that Ukrainian forces retreated as Russian forces broke through 2 defensive lines in the eastern region of Luhansk. Ukraine's military has not confirmed that, but it comes as Ukraine has been bracing for an expected major new Russian offensive that NATO says may have already started. Now down under to New Zealand, where emergency officials are preparing for their final rescues after a deadly cyclone. Helicopters will assist in rescuing stranded residents in the north, which was inundated by flooding and landslides. At least 4 people were killed in the most destructive storm there in decades. And now finally back here to London, where Buckingham Palace is averting a potential diplomatic clash over the crown that Camilla, the Queen Consort, will wear at King Charles' coronation in May. There had been speculation that her crown would include the controversial 105-carat Koh-i-Noor diamond, which India claims was plundered from it in the colonial era. But instead, Camilla will wear a recycled crown used by Queen Mary more than a century ago. And recycled or not, I'm sure it is still a very nice crown.
Back to you.
They have some fancy stuff there. All right.
Josh, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
Coming up, for some kidney patients, it could mean the difference between life and death. We're going to tell you about a new rule aimed at helping people of color get the treatment they need.
Plus, early to bed, early to rise, what new research shows about the importance of a good sleep routine. Next on Morning News Now.
We're back now with a look at how a new rule is helping overcome racial disparities in healthcare.
Getting a kidney transplant for people of color was once a harrowing process due to a test that's been called racially biased. NBC's Jamish Alcindor explains turnaround time for patients may finally get shorter.
Crystal Higgins developed kidney disease 13 years ago and got a transplant in 2012. But her disease returned, and for the last 6 years, she's been driving 40 miles 3 times a week to spend hours at dialysis.
And the alternative is not being alive anymore. So I want to see my daughter grow up. I know it's hard on her to watch her mom. I've been sick her whole life.
What's the hardest part of just living through this and waiting for a kidney transplant?
The hardest part is the wait. Sometimes I get anxious when my phone rings because I don't know if it's a call for a transplant. So I feel like my heart races every time I hear my phone ring.
That call may come sooner for Higgins because of a national rule that will remove a test seen as racially biased in determining who gets a transplant.
What's changing now is we have a growing awareness that inclusion of race variables is inaccurate to a large degree and also contributes to disparities in access to care.
Historically, Black patients have had to wait longer for kidney transplants than other races, in part because of an outdated test that overestimated kidney function in African Americans. The nation's transplant system is now banning that test and instructing every kidney transplant program to credit affected Black patients with time. Black people are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with kidney failure than white people. The median wait time for Black patients added in 2014 was 64 months compared to 37 months for white patients. Pavlakis says Black patients on the list should receive a letter from their transplant program, adding the average Black patient could get a kidney between 1 and 2 years sooner than before.
We are hoping that this will be an example of a restorative justice in medicine.
For Crystal Higgins, whose friend died in 2020 waiting for a kidney transplant, the change feels bittersweet.
Do you worry this is coming too late?
For some people, it definitely came too late. I'm really hoping to get a call any day now to come in for a kidney transplant. I packed a bag so that if I receive a call, I'm ready to go.
Yamish Alcindor, NBC News, Olive Branch, Mississippi.
Time now for our weekly medical checkup. We've got some potentially positive news for veggie lovers.
Plus, why more sleep may be good for your heart.
NBC News medical fellow Dr. Akshay Syal joins us now for all these health headlines you might have missed. So let's start off with this new study. It's from UC San Francisco. Found prostate cancer patients might be able to slow the disease by going a little bit greener. So what kind of diet were they on? How did that help?
A little bit greener, but not totally vegetarian. So here's what happened. We're at UCSF. They look at about 2,000 patients who already have prostate cancer. This isn't patients who don't have it. And what they found that those who did a plant-based diet, a plant-forward diet, actually showed 2 things. One, about a 52% lower risk of disease progression, meaning they didn't get worse. And also about a 53% reduction in recurrence, meaning that once you were treated, you were less likely for the disease to come back. Now, this was an observational study, so it's not that rigorous, quality of evidence where doctors are going to be recommending, radiation therapy and a plant-based diet in your treatment. But if this pans out in further research, this could be, part of a plan. So what you need to know about this, you don't have to go totally vegetarian. It's plant-forward, not vegetarian. So what that means is you don't have to give up your steak. It means if you take a plate of food, put a lot of plants on there, but don't make the meat the centerpiece like I think a lot of us do with a big fat steak and the veggies on the side. This is saying, hey, maybe rethink that a little bit, maybe make the vegetables for centerpiece and have the steak as a side dish.
Interesting. Okay, so this next study is one that is especially relevant and true for our team here at Morning News Now. Talk to us about sleep, the going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, how important the study says that
Yeah,
is.
it's especially, you and I have talked about this. You get up very, very early regularly. So with this study, it's also about 2,000 people, and what they found was that, if your sleep patterns aren't regular, meaning you're not going to bed at the same time every day, and you're not sleeping for the same amount of hours every night, you can actually, it's associated now with an increased risk of plaque in your arteries. Now, why do we care about that? If you have plaque in your arteries, think of your arteries like a pipe, and blood flowing through the pipe. If you have plaque, it starts to make that pipe narrower, and eventually it can cause a blockage, and that can cause a heart attack. And so that's why we really want to make sure that we're, one, sleeping for the same amount of hours every night, and two, going to bed at the same time every night to lower that risk of heart disease, because I don't think a lot of people know about this association here.
Yeah, it just seems like every study that comes out talks about sleep and the importance of getting enough, but also the consistency in the schedule, which is not easy with our job, certainly.
Yeah, it's not easy, but consistency over amount, or whether you're a morning or night person, if you're consistent, that's the key.
That's the key, yeah.
All right, let's talk about sugar. Not all sugars are created equal, but there's a new study showing eating and drinking high amounts of sugar that can put you at risk for heart disease. That's not maybe super surprising, but what kinds of sugar are we talking about here?
Yeah, so the study called them free sugars. There's free sugars and there's non-free sugars, and it sounds kind of obvious, but basically free sugars are things that aren't really found naturally in fruits and vegetables. They're added by the manufacturers to make things a little bit sweeter, make them taste better. But I think, when talking to patients, a lot of times they know that, eating sugar, eating a lot of diet high in sugar can cause obesity and it can cause weight gain. They don't often know the association between heart disease. So that's why I think this is really important. But basically, what they found was that, looked at about 110,000 people, and what they found was that those who were eating those diets higher in sugars were more likely to have a heart disease, high risk of heart disease, and a high risk of stroke. So the key here, what you really need to know is eat the fiber, meaning that if you eat a whole fruit, an apple, much better than an apple juice, because you don't spike your blood sugar, because the fiber helps slow the digestion. That ultimately is what we think is better for you.
And better than, say, a candy bar or something like that. Of course. You're like, yes, Joe.
Yes.
All right.
Good question. I thought it was an important question.
Thank you. Good follow-up. All right, Dr. Akshay Sayal, as always, thank you so much.
All right, coming up, building a bridge to homeownership.
When we come back, we're going to explore the challenges that black families face when buying a home and how one woman is working to fix that. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. We are continuing our celebration of Black History Month by looking at gaps of inequality faced by the black community and highlighting people who are working actively to close those gaps.
Yeah, housing is just one of the many areas where black people in America have been historically underserved and at times left out of the conversation altogether. Here's NBC News' Maya Eaglin with one woman's pursuit for change.
My grandpa bought this house in 1968. We've had it through 3 generations. His investment here, which was just $18,000 back then, has now grown into a $2 million blossoming investment.
Keisha's an entrepreneur in Washington State and inherited her grandfather's home when he passed away in 2020. She's been documenting some of the challenges she's been facing as a black woman homeowner on social.
There's all these tactics that they use to try to scare you to feel like you are not able to stay in your land.
Why is generational wealth important?
As a black American, we're only 100 and something years removed from slavery. So to even have generational wealth as an opportunity is such a valuable thing, because 100 and something years ago, we couldn't even own anything. You have families that have legacies and legacies and legacies of wealth, whereas black families are still building. It's like a stairway. If every generation continues to climb higher, your family gets higher and higher. If every time you're starting over, it's a more steep climb for everyone.
One study estimates there's a $330 billion gap between black and white families' annual flow of new wealth, and a $200 billion gap of inheritances each year. What are some of the challenges that have historically prevented black families from obtaining generational wealth?
Definitely access to capital, having jobs that are paying as much as other people are being paid in the same positions, going into banks, not being able to get loans.
There's data on the systemic bias too. An analysis in 2021 found black families were twice as likely to be denied for a home mortgage loan compared to white families. Do you think this can change, Keisha?
I think it's going to take communication and education. So families never know where you're going to be taken and what those seeds planted are going to grow into. But you got to get on your knees and plant some seeds, right? You got to get in the ground and you got to tend to some soil, because in spring, something will bloom.
Maya Eaglin, NBC News.
The Justice Department established multi-million-dollar home ownership funds in the last year with lenders in at least 4 different states. The goal of those funds is to hopefully start the work of closing the racial home ownership gap. Our thanks to Maya Eaglin for that important report.
Some more financial headlines now. Apple is looking at changing the criteria for their new Buy Now, Pay Later program.
CNBC's Silvana Hanau joins us now with more on that and other news. Good morning.
Ellis and Joe, good morning to you. Yes, so Apple is laying out the rules for how it will make lending decisions for its new Buy Now, Pay Later service. Now, Bloomberg reports it will evaluate a customer's creditworthiness based on a number of factors, including their spending history at Apple and what devices they own. The program, which lets shoppers pay for purchases in installments, will also look at whether customers have applied for an Apple credit card and other cards they have linked to their accounts. Apple Pay Later is currently being tested with Apple retail employees. Google is rolling out its fiber home internet service with 5 gigabyte speeds in 3 U.S. cities: Kansas City, Salt Lake City, and West Des Moines. Now, Google started testing the service for some customers in those areas last year. The new service will cost $125 a month and includes an optional Wi-Fi router and installation that can upgrade a home to be a 10 gigabyte ready. And Netflix has removed the Surprise Me button, which it just launched 2 years ago. A spokesperson says the company discontinued the feature last month because few people were using it. Netflix found subscribers tend to come to the service with a specific show, movie, or genre in mind, undercutting the appeal of a function like Surprise Me. Now, the feature would instantly start playing a show or movie without making users scroll through the Netflix library to find something to watch, guys. I never used it.
I never saw it, but now I kind of want to see what it would have surprised me with.
I thought no warning, no warning on the genre. That's bold.
Whatever it is, I'd watch it for 2 minutes and be like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Savannah, thank you.
Thank
Sure
you.
thing.
Coming up, he's already made his name in music. Now Pharrell Williams is making strides in the fashion world.
He has some pretty big shoes to fill. More on his new role with French luxury band Louis Vuitton when we come back here on Morning News Now. Welcome back, and attention history buffs. A never before seen video of a dive through the wreckage of the Titanic is set to be released today. The footage is from 1986, and it features world-renowned explorer Robert Ballard leading a team of divers more than 12,000 feet below the surface of the North Atlantic. They became the first humans to ever set eyes on the ship after it tragically sunk more than a century ago now. The release, of course, comes with the award-winning Titanic celebrating its 25th anniversary. You can catch the new footage tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution's YouTube channel.
If I can spell it, I will get on that YouTube
I know,
channel.
I was about to say, you might have to Google that to find it.
It does look fascinating.
It is. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And people are still fascinated, of course, by that story.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the worlds of fashion and music are merging at Louis Vuitton. The famous fashion brand has appointed award-winning musician Pharrell Williams to succeed Virgil Abloh as the next creative director for menswear there.
Yeah, in a statement, the French luxury brand said he is a, quote, visionary whose creative universes expand from music to art and to fashion, establishing himself as a cultural global icon. Joining us now to discuss is Wall Street Journal men's fashion columnist Jacob Gallagher. Jacob, good morning to you. Walk us through this process, how the company decided to go with Pharrell.
So I think it's important to kind of start by noting this was the job that everyone kind of was wondering what was going to happen. Virgil died probably about a year and a half or so ago, just under that. And since that time, obviously, these jobs don't stay open for that long. They've stayed open for a little bit longer here and there at these conglomerates. But there's been talk about independent designers. There's been talk about them doing a revolving door. We've heard a lot of rumors. But the Pharrell thing kind of, frankly, makes sense. I mean, Vuitton is a very large brand. They're a brand that is intrinsically tied to pop culture. They're already working with a lot of musicians over time. And what Pharrell kind of brings to the table, I believe, is this kind of continuation of what Virgil was doing, bringing in new consumers, kind of broadening the brand's pop cultural crossovers, and also just kind of appealing to perhaps a younger guy in a lot of ways. Of course, a guy that still has a lot of money to buy Louis Vuitton,
Yeah.
but
he's doing okay.
He's, you know, I think that he fulfills a lot of those same things, but also, you know, it's important to note that Pharrell, as much as he's a musician, is also this kind of streetwear entrepreneur. He's had his own brand, Billionaire Boys Club, since 2003. And that brand has had a lot of impact kind of in that market. And what we're just seeing is the continued crossover of that streetwear market, if you will, for lack of a better term, into high fashion.
So, I mean, I think this is surprising still for a lot of people that it wasn't someone who comes specifically from the design world. Is this sort of a trend we're seeing where these folks who are more in the celebrity world move into this sort of space? And what are the pros and cons of that?
At LVMH, that's certainly true. And LVMH is, you know, it's Louis Vuitton, it's Dior, it's Kenzo and Loewe and brands of this nature. They're more kind of, it seems like that conglomerate is more willing, if you will, to bring in these celebrities and align with these celebrities, whether that's, you know, putting them in the front row or collaborating with them or even hiring them in this situation. Kering, which is kind of the other luxury juggernaut, if you will, which is Gucci, Balenciaga, Alexander McQueen, they're a little bit less keen on that, maybe. I mean, Balenciaga might be an outlier there in terms of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West back in the day, if you will. But, you know, now I think in terms of Vuitton, it does represent that you can't separate high fashion and celebrity anymore. I mean, this appointment is kind of the apex of that, if you will, but I think it's true kind of across a lot of luxury brands.
So when could we see the first collection from Pharrell, and what do you expect to see within that?
It'll be in June during Paris Fashion Week, during Men's Paris Fashion Week, which is a pretty quick appointment. Gucci just appointed a new creative director. He will not be showing his first collection until September. This is a shorter timeline, and it just varies brand to brand. Sometimes the timelines can be months when they have a new appointment. Sometimes it can be going on a year. We'll see what comes from this. It's very hard to gauge. I mean, there's been some... Pharrell has worked with Vuitton in the past on sunglasses, on jewelry, and of course his own style might bring some hints. You know, he loves Chanel, he loves kind of this fusion of Comme des Garçons leather jackets with American blue jeans. He has this kind of mishmash style, if you will, for lack of a better word, that I think I think that's what he'll bring. One thing is for sure, though, is that show will be the marquee event of that week,
No
without
kidding.
a doubt. I mean, the last show that happened in January, it was Rosalia performed, and there were all these celebrities in the front row, and that's what Vuitton does, is they make these events real events. And so I think Pharrell being there will only add to that.
Definitely.
Wow, something to watch. Jacob Gallagher, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Finally this hour, many of us have music that reminds us of special moments in our lives. Well, now a man in Portland is creating personalized songs, which he calls tiny anthems for everyday people. NBC News correspondent Gotti Schwartz explains.
I think we know how this story begins.
In a tiny basement studio in Portland, Oregon.
All social decorum is abandoned at sea, 'cause though the place is empty, she moors next to Dev's seat.
There's something special about the lyrics floating in the air.
They're still strangers at this point, though they've been here 1,000 times.
This modern-day bard is writing ballads about ordinary, everyday people.
Tiny anthems is a system where you give me information about your sister or your husband or your cousin Greg. Ugh, Greg. And based on what you tell me, I will then compose a song.
And it all started with an offer to write a song about anyone for $2.
First, you turn on this light, you set the switch to dwell, then you turn these switches up to 10, and then, well, this one's actually a washing machine.
And quickly snowballed into Mike Long's life's work. Today, Mike charges about $300 per song, putting more than 20 hours each into the composition.
There's just like something absurd about what I'm doing that just makes me want to keep doing it. Dev's a grain and crystal when Sid comes sailing in.
He's now written and composed hundreds of tiny anthems, each created for an audience of one.
I've never experienced a gift like that before in my life, and I imagine I may not ever again. Incredible, one of a kind.
It's all downhill from here.
For Dev Sirk and Sid Snyder, Tiny Anthems has become the soundtrack of their lives.
There are very few people in this world that have a love song written about them.
That is so true, and we have 3 of them.
And Mike's creative process can be as unpredictable as his lyrics. His orchestra, just about anything that makes a sound. watching him create music from thin air is simply magical. Moments later, yet another sound ready to celebrate that indescribable essence that makes each one of us so unique.
If you get close enough to a person, you'll find something to love about them.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News, Portland, Oregon.
That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.